Are we on? Yep. Oh. All right. Well, today we begin a new chapter. So, first thing I want to point out is the verse 1 in the Christian Bible is actually verse 37 in the Jewish Bible. 37, 21. So if you're reading the English Bible or the Christian Bible, you may have a little trouble keeping up. Just keep that in mind if you happen to be reading one of those. But if you have the Jewish Bible, you shouldn't have any trouble because we are going along with that. So at this point, let's please stand and we'll read our scriptures for this chapter. Chapter 22. Chapter 22 and the real verse 1. Actually, it probably should have been the other way around. But anyway, chapter 22, verse 1, it's Shemot, also known as Exodus. I'm thinking there's a problem here. Where's my glasses? I don't actually see them. No. Where? Yeah. I have to look it up and thought I can't read that. Okay, that's better. Here we go. Shemot 22:1. Im bamach teret yimatzeh haganav vehu ka bamet ein lo damim. Verse 2. Im zarecha hashemesh alive damim lo shalem yeshalem im ein lo venimkar bignevato. Im himatze timatze vegado hageneva mishor ad chamor ad se chayim shenayim yeshalem. Oh, that's weird. Ki ya ve'er ish sada o cherem ve'shilach et bi'iro u'vi'er bisde acher metav sadehu umetav karemo yeshalem. Ki te ze'esh u'matzah kotzim ve'ne'ehol gadish o hakama o hasade shalem yeshalem ha-ma've'ir et ha-ve'era. Ki yiten ish el re'ehu ke'esef o chelim lishmor begunav mi beit ha'ish im yimatzeh haganav yeshalem shenayim. Im lo yimatzeh haganav beni kerav Baal ha-bayit el ha-Elohim im lo shalach yado bimelechet re'ehu. Al kol davar pesha al shor al chamur al se al salma al kol avada asher yomar ki u ze ad ha-Elohim yavo devar shenehem asher yar shi'un Elohim yeshalem shenayim le're'ehu. Ki yiten ish el re'ehu chamor o shor o se v'hol behema lishmor umet o nashbar o nishba ein roe. Shevuat Yahweh tiye ben shenehem im lo shalach yado bi melechet re'ehu velakach be'alai velo yeshalem. Ve'im ganov yiganev, me'imo yeshalem li ve'alive. Im tarof yitaref ye'vi ehu ed ha-terefa lo yeshalem. Vechi yish'al ish me'im re'ehu benishbar o met ba'alive ein imo shalem yeshalem. Im be'alive imo lo yeshalem. Im sachir hu ba bis charo. Vehi yefate ish betula asher lo orasa veshachav ima mahor yim ha rena lo li lo le isha, rather. Im ma'en yema'en aviha le tita lo kesef yishkol kimahor or har ha betulot. Mehasefa lo tehaya. And we're at verse 18 now. Kol shochev im behema mot yumot. Zoveach la Elohim yaharam bilti la Yahweh levado. Beger lo tone belo tilcha zenu ki gerim he yitem be'eretz mitzrayim. Kol amana beyatom lo ta'anun. Im ane ta'ane oto ki im zadok yitzak alai shamoa e shema za'akato. V'chara api v'haragti etchem b'charev v'hayu neshechem a lemanot u v'nehem yetonim, or yetomim, sorry. Im kesef talve et ami et he'ani imach lo teye lo kenoshe lo tishimun alive neshech. Im chavol tachbol salmat re'echa ad bo ashemesh te shivenu lo. Ki chiv or ki kiv chesuto levada kiv simlato leoro bame yishkav, sorry, vehaya ki yitzak elai veshamati ki chanun ani. Elohim lo tekalel venashi ve'amecha lo ta'or. Me le'at, that's not right. Me le'atecha bedim acha lo te'acher bechor baneha titen li. Ken ta'aseh lo shorecha le'zonecha shiv'at yamim yiyeh im imo bayom ha-shemini titeno li. And finally, Ve'anshe Kodesh Tiyun Li Ubasar Basade Terefa Lo Tehelu Lahe La Kelev Tashli Chun Oto. Wow. All right, so you may be seated. That's some long-winded stuff, isn't it? Sorry about that. Still have a little trouble seeing it. You play a 50-inch screen and I still have trouble seeing the words. Okay, so we begin with Shemot, or Exodus chapter 22 in verse 1. Remember, this is verse 1 of the Hebrew Bible and not the English Bible. Somebody was supposed to turn off this monitor. It did not. Weasel around there. And it's the button on the side, though. You're going to be seen in there. Just do it. I need that thing turned off. It's very confusing. Top button, yeah, there we go. Sorry, everybody, that was very distracting. Okay, so it literally, if we translate it directly to English, using just the literal meanings, here's what it says. If in burglary he found the thief and struck and died, nothing to he bloody. You see, that doesn't make any sense in English, right? But it begins with the word im, which means if. It's also used for lo and behold. Only in English, though, it's to make English make it make sense. But in Hebrew, it's what do they call an interrogative? It's a question. So is that right? It's, like an interrogation. So it is like a question. Anyway, the next word is bamachteret, in burglary. The basic word is machteret, which is burglary. To burglarize, to break in, to break through. It's spoken of a thief coming through at night, particularly at night, though it can be used of the daytime. It's pretty much used just of the night. The next word is yimatse, if he's found. Now this is in Nephal. We've already had the word, no we haven't. What am I saying? I got this marked wrong. We have not already had this word. So if it's in Nephal, it's to be acquired by anyone, to be found, to find. And what do they mean by acquired? Okay, so I know there's a treasure map, a treasure, and I have the map. I've followed the map. I've dug the hole, and I've acquired the treasure, right? So I found it, which means I have acquired it. That's what they mean by that. So it's to find something. And it's from the root to come to attain to. So if I find knowledge, if I find the truth, I have attained to it. So there's a lot of different uses here. Of course, we're speaking about burglary. So if he's found in the act of burglary, well, who's the he? Haganav, the thief. If a thief is found in burglary, then it says vehuka, and he struck. So it's in something called hofal, which means nothing to people who don't speak Hebrew. Doesn't mean a lot to some that do, but it's the passive of he filled. That don't make any sense either, right? But it's to be smitten, to be beaten, to be struck. It's either with an open-handed slap, a punch, somebody picked up a board and hit you with it, a baseball bat. I mean, you can be struck with a bullet, so you can be shot. It's to be struck, and since this is the hofal, it's to be slain, to be killed. It's an unused root, so it's never used in the root, but the root is to smite or to strike, mostly used in the sense of hurting, which of course this does apply because it is, the root will always apply to the meaning of the word. So if he's struck, and then it says vamet, that's literally it's and dies. So if he's struck and he dies, it's to die, to be killed, it's to stop breathing, right? It's to die. Then it says ain, which is nothingness, it's emptiness, it's vacuity. So nothing, low, and that's that sound alike word, because generally low means no or not, but this is to he. So to somebody, damim, which is the plural of dam. So dam is blood, and think about the word Adam. We say it Adam in America, Adam, made of blood. So if he be bloody or bloods, because it's plural is what it is, but it's blood from its red color, specifically used for bloodshed and slaughter, for guilt contracted by killing. So there is no guilt for his blood is basically what's being said here. So then the translation is, if a thief is found burglarizing and is struck and dies, nothing is owed because he died. Nothing to he bloody. It's a Hebrew idiom. Nothing to he bloody means that nothing is owed because of his death. So what are they saying? Well, basically, the family of the burglar cannot sue for wrongful death or losses of any kind. Think about the OJ trial, since that's, he just got his parole or whatever you call that, and now he's going to get out of jail. When he had the criminal trial, he was found not guilty, and so he was set free. But the family came back against God's law and sued him for wrongful death, right? If this had, I should say, if this had been the case, if someone had broken into his house and they were killed, and then the family comes back and sues for wrongful death, which can be done in America now, that's something that God's law did not allow. If you break into somebody's house and you die, it's just too bad for you. And it's too bad for your family. This is not going to be a payday. But also, the family can't sue the family of the thief because they didn't raise their child right and their child came into our house and now we'll never feel safe in our house again, because that's going on in America as well. These things are against God's law. And by the way, the laws that we have in our nation were based on these laws. So we've gotten a long way from the laws as they were intended and the laws as they were initially set up in our country. Under the words found burglarizing, even Ezra wrote, and others said we should think of this as a nighttime break-in. I don't disagree with him because it's generally used of a nighttime break-in, but again, it can be used for daytime break-in. Just you break into somebody's house and you get killed, it's just too bad for you. That's all that's being said here. Casuto said it was right to presume that a thief caught breaking in was prepared to kill to save himself. Thus, the lord of the home is only committing the act of self-defense. Honestly, let me talk about that. I mean, this is the excuse everybody gives. Somebody broke into your house in the middle of the night, you killed him. We just need to look at it as self-defense. That's not what this scripture's saying. This scripture's saying, I realized, I woke up in the middle of the night. I realized somebody has just broken into my house. I decide I'm just going to shoot that guy and kill him. It's not self-defense. He's over there bent over trying to disconnect my TV equipment, and I shoot him in the back. So what? That's what this law says. It says I am okay to go shoot him in the back, which is a little cowardly if you think about it. But I don't know that the guy doesn't have a shotgun in his hand either. So maybe it's safer for me to do that. But that's what this law is saying. If you break into somebody's house, you've just lost your right to live. No matter what their reasoning, no matter there's no such thing as murder in this case because you broke into somebody's house. That's what it's really saying. Rashi said the Lord is not liable to penalty because it is self-defense. Again, trying to make it something it's not. Now, where it says nothing to he bloody, even Ezra said there was no guilt for the homeowner. Well, he is correct. Rashi said there was no blood because the thief was dead. Rashi was completely wrong here. Because if you killed the man, if you struck him and killed him, he probably bled to death. So that was just, I don't know, I don't get him sometimes. This verse is where the Talmudic principle of self-defense actually comes from, which states, if someone comes to kill you, rise to kill him first. That comes from the Talmud. All right. Now, our next verse, verse 2. Literally in English, it would say, if rise the sun on him bloody, to he peace, if nothing to he, and will be sold for theft he. So the first thing that we ought to realize is the first verse is telling us this is what happens if he's dead. And this verse then is telling us what happens if you've struck him and he lives. Right? Because the first one is if he's struck and he dies, there's no guilt. This one's going to tell us what happens if he's struck and he lives. So it starts off with the if word, the interrogatory word. Then it says zarecha. So if rise, it's to rise. It's used of the sun coming up in the morning, right? It doesn't really come up, but that's what it looks like. It looks like it was under the earth somehow, and it comes up in the morning, right? So it's under the rising. Figuratively, it's applied to leprosy because it's breaking through the skin, and the sun is thought of as breaking over the mountains, breaking over the horizon. It's that same thing. Then it says ha shemesh. So if the sun rises, then it says alive on him. We're still talking about a thief here. If the sun arises on this thief, he's still alive. Damim, there's your word, the plural for blood, the bloody, the bloods, however you want to look at that. Bloods to he, because it's low, to he. Shalem, there's your word for peace. So it's shalem, though, is to restore, to pay, figuratively to impart comfort, to requite, to recompense. It's to pay it back. It's of the root shalom. You hear shalom there, right? To be whole, sound, safe, to be completed and finished, to have peace. All right, so this is peace, yes, shalem. You guys should recognize this. Another Hebrew idiom. Do you remember it? Then it says, if ain, if nothing lo to he, then nimkar, and will be sold. So if he has nothing, he's going to be sold. It's in nifal, which is to be sold, to sell. You could be selling yourself or someone selling you. It's one of the two. It's from the root mahar, which is to sell. To sell a daughter is to betroth her. It didn't mean you actually, okay, for the low, low price of $19.99, you can buy my daughter. That's not what they mean, but they called it selling the daughter because there was, when a man would betroth a woman, the woman was going to stay with her father for a certain amount of time. If she's betrothed at, say, 8 years old, which was possible, then he had to leave enough goods there, animals, cows, sheep, gold, silver, material to make clothing, all this. He has to make provision for her from the time she's 8, because she's going to stay with mom and dad. She's not going with him, but she's his responsibility. So he's going to pay for every need that she has. If she's in sports, he's got to buy her sports equipment. If she rides horses, he's got to pay for her riding lessons, and all, whatever it is that she's going to do, he has to pay from the time she's 8 years old until she's the time where he can come and get her as a grown woman. That's why they called it selling. So he had to make all that provision, but he also had to bring gifts to the parents as well. So this was, you probably didn't want to betroth the girl at 8. That was going to be really expensive. You can wait until later in life, but then if you do, somebody else might betroth her. So that's why girls tended to get betrothed at such young ages back then. If they were, say, the daughter of the high priest, they might have betrothed her the minute she was born. I mean, if you want your son to be married to the daughter of a high priest, you're going to have to snatch her up, and it's going to be costly because you're going to have to basically pay for the way she's raised, but you're not going to raise her. Just keep that in mind. She didn't go with the man. They did not get together until she was a grown woman. And her father decided, well, not her father, his father decided when it was time, the groom's father decided that, but that was going to be based on the deal that was made with her father. Anyway, but they called that selling the daughter. But they could also sell their children into indentured servitude to pay off debt, right? We've already had that. Then it says bignevato, which is with thefty or because of his theft. So here's our translation. We have a couple of idioms here. So if the sun rise on him bloody, if the sun rise on him bloody, that's an idiom. If he lives after being struck, because he's bloody, because he's been struck, but he lived. So that's what they mean by that. If he lives after being struck, then it says, to he peace, he peace. Peace, he peace. What does that mean? It means if he lives after being struck, he will absolutely pay restitution. If he has nothing, if he doesn't have the ability to pay, see, this is basically an idiom. If he doesn't have the ability to pay, he will be sold into indentured servitude because of his theft. It's that simple. You're going to pay back, because if you've broken in, that means you've broken a window, you've broken a doorknob, you've broken a lock, you've come in and you've probably freaked out the whole family, so there will be the damages of the emotional sort tacked onto it. Whatever damage was done, because the assumption here is that you were hit, and maybe maybe he shot you in the leg as you were running off, and you actually ran off with the goods. So whatever damage is done there, you're going to pay for it if you live. So the words, the sun rise on him bloody, Rashbam and Nachmanides thought this meant that the thief broke in during the day, even though the text really doesn't argue against it, but it doesn't really argue for it either. Rashi attempted to interpret metaphorically and thought that it meant that it was clear as day that the man had no murderous intentions. Thus, if the Lord of the house kills the thief, then he has committed murder. Rashi was way off on this one. No, that's not what's being said. All you have to do is understand the idioms, and now you know what it means. Okay, so we're looking at verse 3. Literally in English, it says, if that discovery shall be found in hand he, the thief from ox or donkey or flock living, doubling he restore. So this is, he, not necessarily that he got struck, but that he broke in, he stole something, and he got out. He got away with it, but down the road somewhere he got caught with it. Isn't that Farmer Smith's cow you got there with you? He got busted. Someone caught him with the stuff. So it's if, the interrogatory word, himatze, if it's discovered, if he's been found out. We've actually had this word. That's to acquire something because you dug it out of the ground and you found it, to acquire knowledge because you went to school and you learned it. So if it's to discover something, if he's been found out, timatze, it's the same word. So if it's absolutely been found out, in other words, it can't just be a rumor. Hey, I thought I saw Joe Schmo over there with Farmer Smith's cow. No, he has to be caught with the goods. It's absolutely known that this guy is the one that stole the cow, because it's not that some guy stole the cow, realized he couldn't get away fast enough, he let the cow go, so some neighbor down the street says, whoa, hey, I found a cow. You have to absolutely know that the guy with the cow was the guy that actually stole the cow. That's why they said if it's absolutely known. Then it's begado. So if it's found in his hand, it doesn't mean that it's literally he's holding the rope, dragging a cow somewhere. It means it's under his authority. It's he's the leader of a gang, and one of his gang members has it. He's the one that sold it, so it was under his authority when it was sold, under his hand. So if it's found under his hand, hageneva, the theft, is something stolen. Means sure. What is it? It's the cow. I know that shor is used mostly of an ox, but it's also a bull because it's really about the horn thingies that come out. They're called horns, right? I was confused there for a minute. The image there is about the horns, and so it can be a bull, a cow. It can be a oxen, but it's that thing. This is odd, which is till or while, chamor, or this is the word for donkey. Then odd, which I don't know why they're using the word for till. Oh, maybe this because he's found with these things. Then it says se, which is really the word for flock, generally tied in with a sheep, but it's really flock because it can be sheep or goats, and they're almost always together in their world. Hayim, if they've while they're still alive. If the cow is still alive, if the donkey is still alive, if the sheep or goat from the flock is still alive, because that's what it is alive. Shanayim. Okay, so it's found double. Shanayim is double. It's 2 times. So if he was found with 2 cows, and they're still alive, then he has to pay back. Not only does he have to give back the 2 cows, but he now has to give an additional 2 cows. So whatever it is, they're going to double up on it. So if this guy stole 2 cows, 2 sheep, and what's the other one? 2 donkeys, he's going to give all of those back because they're alive. He was found with them and they're still alive. He's got to give them all back plus 2 more of each. That's going to be a very expensive robbery. So here's your translation. If that which was stolen is discovered alive and under his control, it's, whether it's him personally or somebody who's doing it for him, he will restore double. Because again, that's an idiom. Doubling, he restore. Means he will restore double. From oxen to donkey to flock. It doesn't make any difference what it is. So of the words is discovered alive, Cassuto interpreted it, if the stolen beast is found in his possession. Kinda-ish, but I don't really agree with that. Onkelos by Drazin and Wagner said the division of opinion depends on the punctuation of the biblical text. I bring that up because it also says that the Masoretes, if you read a Christian English Bible, they're what they call the Old Testament, we would call the Tanakh. That portion of it comes from the Masoretic text. In fact, there's a lot of Jewish Tanakh, Tanahim, their Bible, the Jewish Bibles, that actually use the Masoretic text, because up until they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, that was the oldest, most authoritative version of the Hebrew Bible that could be found. Now we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're 1,000 years older. And by the way, say almost exactly the same thing. In fact, the only real differences that you find between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic text is, one, the Dead Sea Scrolls don't have vowel pointing in them, which the Masoretic text does. But because that's the Masoretes are the ones who came up with that whole vowel pointing idea. So you find that in there. You don't find it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But the main differences between them, besides that, was just artistic. Maybe they spelled Moshe's name one way in one book, and maybe they spelled it another way, and they didn't do that with Moshe, but they did that with Melchizedek. That's somebody they did that with. You can look that up. The Jews like to play with people's names, especially people that were evil, and they would change by just spelling it differently. They would change the meaning of somebody's name. Who's one of them? Can you think of somebody? Antiochus Epiphanes. That meant God manifest, and the Jews changed it to, I forget how exactly they changed it, but what it meant was crazy man. It sounded kind of like Antiochus Epiphanes, and you might read through it real quick and not catch that they're actually calling him a crazy man instead of God manifest. So they did things like that. It was just an artistic thing. It wasn't that somebody was misspelling his name. I mean, they were, but they were doing it on purpose. So those were the kind of things that you found that varied, and because there's 1,000 years between them. And so there were different sensibilities when you're 1,000 years apart. But again, I bring this up because in Hebrew text of the biblical period, it does not make any difference where you put the comma, because there is no comma. Punctuation didn't exist. And so when you start looking at the words and you say, well, if I put the comma here, it means one thing, and if I put the comma there, it means another. For instance, when the enemy comes in, comma, like a flood, the Lord will lift up a standard against him. So now it's the Lord lifting up a standard like a flood. But if you say when the enemy comes in like a flood, comma, so now it's the enemy coming in like a flood. And so you see that this one sentence can have 2 completely different meanings simply by moving a comma. In Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, that is not possible. They were not written with commas, nor did they need commas. The reason why they didn't have punctuation was because they did not need punctuation. If you're reading a verse and it can be read one way or read the other, you don't understand your verse. there's something wrong with your understanding, because there's only one way for it to actually make sense, and only one way it's supposed to be read. And if you can't see that, the problem is you, not the text. That's why I'm pointing that out. Who was this? Drauzine and Wagner also said the Meserites, who functioned centuries after the composition of the Targum, I don't know why it says centuries, it's a century, right? No, centuries is 100 years, right? Yeah, so 10 centuries. It's 1,000 years. Centuries after the composition of the Targum, that's the Onkelos Targum, and who introduced biblical punctuation through cantillation, which is music notes using the Torah readings, punctuated the verse in accordance with Onkelos. So you have, Onkelos was no doubt right because of the when it was written, but so it's a good thing that they did that. But the punctuation, that's all I'm trying to tell you, is it has no need of punctuation. If you're finding a way to make it say two different things, you're the problem. Okay, let's move on to, do we have time? Yes, verse 4. Literally, it would say, if he consume man, field, or vineyard, and send out livestock he, and consume in field another, best field he, and best vineyard he restore. I think if you read that a few times, you might actually be able to understand that one. This one's a little more clear, but it's ki, which means if. Then it's ya ve'er, if he consume. It's in he fill, to depasture. I know that's not a word anymore, but it used to be a real word. To depasture, a field, a vineyard. To kindle, as in firewood, to burn up, to consume by fire, to fire to anything, to set fire to anything, I would think. It's from the root ba'ar, which is to feed upon, to eat up, to consume. Use of cattle consuming a field. Of human beings gleaning what's left of a field. To consume by fire, because it's like the fire is consuming everything that it touches, right? Then it says ish, which is the word for man, and it's a male as opposed to a female, a man as opposed to a woman. Sada, which is field. So if this field is being consumed, and it's what you would think of as a field. It's a flat land where there's grass or hay. It's used of a meadow, right? So then it says "o." Remember the word "o" in Hebrew means "or" in English, this or that. Then it says "cherem." If it consumes a field or a vineyard. Cherem is the word for vineyard. Veshilach, and send out. It's in PL, it's to send out. Do you hear shalach, shalachim, like disciples? They're the ones that are sent out to teach the word, right? That's the sent ones. So if it's sent out, bet yuro. So if this man sent out his livestock to consume a field or to consume a vineyard, then it says uvi er, and it consumed these animals consumed bisde, and they consumed the field. We've already had that word. Acher, that's another. Oh, you sent him out to consume his field, but now we see that it's if he sent him out to consume his field, but they consumed someone else's, because they consumed another field. They didn't consume the one they were sent out to consume. Meta, that's the best. That's the best of the best, right? Sedehu. So the best field, his best field, Umetav, and his best Karmo, his best vineyard, Yeshalem. So he's going to restore the field or the vineyard that was consumed, because it was supposed to be his, but they consumed someone else's. Now he has to restore it with his very best field and his very best vineyard. Here's the translation. If a man send out his livestock to consume a field or vineyard, and it consume another man's field, he will restore it with his best field and his best vineyard. Because if God didn't say that, what would happen? They'd send their animals out to consume somebody else's field, and then when it was time to restore, they'd give them some weed-stricken, rock-stricken, good-for-nothing field and vineyard that he has, right? Because it'd be cheaper to do that than it would be to feed him properly. All right, so of the words send out his livestock, the Sephorno says he is liable even if he turns the animals out on his own field and they stray into someone else's field. That is absolutely correct. It's any field. Another field is any field. All right. Maybe time enough for one last one. Verse 5. If shall go out fire and find undergrowth and devour stack or the grain or the field, restore he restore that caused consume the fire. Another one that if you read it over and over enough, you could probably get this one. So if tezeh, it's from the root yatzah. If go out, it goes forth. So something is going to go forth. Esh. If the fire goes forth, you've set a fire, it's supposed to just burn this little area, you're going to burn off some leaves or something, but it went forth. It goes out from where it was supposed to be. This is your idea. Umatzah. It's not matzah like you eat. It's the word matzah. It's been found out. It's attained, and it finds kotzim. So the fire goes out because it has found undergrowth. You know, you've set this fire. You weren't paying attention to what's around it, and there's this undergrowth, and so now the fire is spreading. V'ne'echol, and it devours. It laps up something else, something beyond what it was intended. Gadish, it laps up a stack. It's a heap. It's because it took the sheaves and they piled them up in a big pile. So if it goes out there and it consumes somebody's stack of hay, stack of whatever, this says oh, which means or hakama, or a big pile of grain, because that's the way they did it back then. Remember, they had one day to do the harvest. So, well, not one day, but you couldn't leave your harvest. So in the Bible times, they would go out in these large fields, and they would harvest everything, and there'd be all these great big old piles. Or they would sleep out there on the piles or by the piles, because if they left it, whatever they left had to be given to the poor. And though they left edges of their fields for the poor, if they left the stuff that was in piles, that was also given to the poor. So this grain and this pile of hay and these things, you're not just consuming this stuff, you're putting people's lives in danger, because those fields with those piles are going to have people in them. So this is a pretty serious offense here. But they would sleep out there until they got everything all gathered up and packaged and shipped out, right? So these people are there until those things were gone. So now a fire has been set, and you've burned up this guy's pile of grain, his pile of hay, his pile of wheat, his pile of corn. It makes no difference what it is. Then this is O, which again means or. Hasadeh, or it just burns up the field. Shalem, there's your word for restore. Shalem. So it's, remember, why do they say something twice in Hebrew? It's for the emphasis. So he will absolutely restore. He's not going to get out of it. Hama ve'ir, that caused the consume, that caused consumed, literally. So it's to depasture someone's field. That fire getting a hold of that underbrush is what caused somebody else's stuff to be completely consumed. Their field, the hay in the field, the corn. It doesn't even have to be harvested. It's just growing out there and it was consumed. You got a problem here. Then it says et have'era, the fire. It's the burning. Okay, so here's your translation. If a fire goes out and finds undergrowth and devours a pile, let me try that again. If a fire goes out and finds undergrowth and devours a pile of corn or grain or even the field, he that caused the fire to consume it will absolutely make restitution. Now remember, this is if you started the fire, you're the cause of the fire. You can't say, well, it's not my fault, it's the undergrowth. It's not my fault, the wind caught it. If you started the fire, you are the cause of the fire. Of the words, a fire goes out, the Babylonian Talmud in Baba Kama 22b says it applies to a fire that spreads through negligence. So what they're doing is making an exception to God's law, saying, well, if you can say it wasn't your fault, then you don't have to pay. You see where that's going? Not good stuff. Of the words pile of corn or grain or a field, the Babylonian Talmud, again in Baba Kama, but this is in 60a, identifies the damages such that it causes a man to replant his field. The text doesn't support that. It doesn't say, you can't say, well, he already harvested his field, and so I shouldn't have to pay anything. No, I didn't say that. It said if you burn up his field, you're going to pay a price for that, regardless of what you've done. You burn up his goods. It's you can see where they would get it though. If you've not burned up his goods, if if the grain wasn't out there, if the hay wasn't growing, then what's no harm, no foul? Well, not exactly. That's the text simply doesn't support it. So I disagree with it for that reason. Well, I'm pretty sure that's as far as I can get today because the next one's a little bit longer. So we'll pick up with verse 6 next week. Shabbat Shalom.